The chamber was silent, too silent. The kind of silence that did not bring peace, but made every heartbeat feel louder, heavier, almost painful. Chains dangled from the ceiling, swaying gently in the cold air. Each movement made a faint metallic sound, like the warning of some hidden danger waiting in the dark. Everyone in the room stood still. Soldiers in black armor gripped their weapons tightly, their eyes fixed on the shadows. Even the bravest among them felt the chill running down their spines. They had been told stories of the beast that now lay chained at the center of the chamber. No one dared to speak loudly. Instead, they whispered, "They say it killed 3 squads before they caught it. Some say it cannot be killed at all. Why do we keep it alive? Why not end this nightmare now?" The whispers spread like a storm of fear, feeding the unease inside every heart. But no one dared step closer. They kept their distance, circling the chains, as if even a glance too near might call the creature's wrath. At the center of this circle of fear was the alien beast. Its huge body rested low on the ground, but its presence filled the chamber like a mountain of living danger. Its scales shimmered with a deep, glowing blue, catching the light in sharp, shining edges. Its eyes, bright green and unblinking, seemed to pierce through every soul that dared look back. It was more than an animal. It was a legend of terror. Some believed it was created for war, a weapon born from alien science. Others thought it was cursed, a creature of rage that could never be tamed. Whatever the truth was, the soldiers only knew one thing: this beast was dangerous, too dangerous to live. At the far end of the chamber stood the leaders, their robes flowing, their faces hidden in shadows. One of them raised a hand, and the soldiers went silent. "This creature must be sacrificed," the leader said. His voice was cold, final, like a hammer striking metal. "It is not safe. It will never be safe. Tonight, we end this threat." The words echoed in the chamber, bouncing off stone walls, sinking deep into the hearts of everyone present. There was no surprise, no shock. The soldiers had expected this. Yet still, they hesitated. Killing a beast like this was no simple task. The alien girl standing near the chains shivered. She was young, her skin a flawless shade of pale blue, her long white hair falling like silver water down her back. Her bright eyes reflected both fear and sorrow. She had seen the beast before, in stories, in warnings, in nightmares. But now, it was real, breathing, chained, yet still powerful. She whispered to herself, so softly that no one else could hear, "Why does it not fight? Why does it look so tired?" The beast's eyes shifted slightly, and for a moment, they met hers. In that instant, she felt something she could not explain. Not rage, not hunger, but something else. A quiet sadness, deep and heavy, buried beneath the scales and chains. She quickly turned away, ashamed of her own thought. "No, it is a monster. It must be destroyed." The soldiers prepared their weapons. Energy rifles lit up with a low hum, glowing at their edges. The sound of power filled the chamber, mixing with the clinking of chains. The beast lifted its head, and for the first time, it growled. The sound rolled through the chamber like thunder, deep and heavy, shaking the very ground. Several soldiers stepped back. One dropped his weapon, his hands trembling. The leader's voice cut through the fear again. "Do not falter. This is not a creature to pity. This is an enemy, a danger, an abomination. It has no place in our world." But still, the soldiers hesitated. Their fingers tightened on their triggers, yet none of them fired. Because deep inside, they all knew if the beast chose to attack, now the chains would not hold it for long. The whispers returned, sharper this time. "It's watching us. It knows what we plan. Maybe it is only waiting for the right moment to strike." The young alien girl pressed her hands together tightly. She could feel her heart racing, beating against her chest as if it wanted to escape. Something inside her kept asking, "Why does this not feel right?" And then movement broke the tension. From the back of the chamber, a human soldier stepped forward. Unlike the others, he carried no fear in his eyes. His armor was scratched and scarred, proof of many battles. Yet his face was calm, steady, and almost gentle. The other soldiers looked at him in disbelief. What is he doing? Has he lost his mind? Does he want to die? The human did not answer them. He walked slowly, each step echoing across the stone floor. The beast's eyes locked on him, glowing brighter, sharper. The air grew heavy, everyone held their breath. The chains rattled, the beast growled again, louder this time. The soldiers raised their weapons, ready to fire at the first sign of attack. But the human did not stop. He kept moving, closer and closer, until he stood just a few steps away from the beast. And then he knelt. Gasps filled the chamber. Even the alien girl's eyes widened in shock. What was he doing? Why was he lowering himself before the most dangerous creature they had ever faced? The chamber was silent again. The whispers stopped. The weapons hummed quietly. The beast's breathing rumbled like a storm. And then, for the first time, the human reached into his pack. Slowly, carefully, he pulled something out, something small, simple, almost ordinary. A piece of food. The suspense tightened around every heart in the chamber. Would the beast attack? Would the human die? Or was something else about to happen? Something no one had ever expected. The beast's eyes glowed brighter as the human knelt, the green fire inside them narrowing onto this strange figure who dared to come closer. The chains trembled as the creature shifted, a sound like grinding metal echoing through the chamber. Everyone felt their breath freeze, waiting for the strike that would surely come. But the human did not move back. His hand stayed steady, holding out the small piece of food. For a long moment, nothing happened. The soldiers stood like statues, their weapons raised but useless, their courage locked in their throats. The leaders watched in silence, their eyes burning with anger at this reckless act. The alien girl stared, her lips parted, unable to look away. The beast's growl rumbled like distant thunder. Yet beneath it there was a hesitation, like a storm fighting against itself. Slowly, the beast lowered its head. The green glow softened, flickering like fading flames. It sniffed the air, a low hiss escaping its throat, as if it was trying to understand this offering. The human did not blink. His calmness was like a wall against the fear that filled the room. When the beast's snout came close, the air grew hotter, its breath heavy and sharp. The food trembled in the human's hand, but his fingers did not shake. He whispered softly, words no one else could hear. And for a brief second it felt as though he was speaking not to a monster, but to something far more fragile. The beast's jaws opened, sharp teeth glistening like knives. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Soldiers raised their rifles, ready to fire. One flinch from the creature, and the chamber would turn into a battlefield. But instead of attack, the beast leaned closer, and with a slow, deliberate motion, it took the food gently between its teeth. It chewed once, twice, and swallowed. The silence broke into disbelief. It ate from his hand. A soldier whispered, "That's not possible." The leaders' faces turned hard, their whispers sharper. "This changes nothing. The creature is dangerous. End it now." But no one could take their eyes off what was happening. The beast lowered its head again, closer this time. Its eyes softened, glowing not with fury, but with something else, curiosity, maybe trust. The human reached out once more, this time, touching its scales. His hand pressed against the rough, glowing blue surface, and the chains rattled as the beast shifted slightly. Instead of pulling away, it allowed the touch. The alien girl covered her mouth, her chest tight with emotions she couldn't name. In her people's stories, the beast was nothing but death, but now she was seeing something different, something impossible. She whispered without meaning to, "It understands him." The leaders barked orders, their voices echoing angrily. "Step back. Do not be fooled. That thing will kill you the moment you turn away." But the human ignored them. His hand moved slowly along the creature's head, a calm rhythm in every stroke. The beast exhaled, a heavy sigh that carried a strange peace, as if a burden had been lifted from it. The soldiers no longer knew what to do. They looked at one another, confusion spreading like wildfire. The monster they had feared, the beast they were ordered to destroy, was showing trust to the human. The alien girl took a hesitant step closer. Her eyes widened as she saw the creature's claws, sharp and huge, slowly retract into the ground. It was not preparing to fight. It was resting. It was surrendering. One soldier muttered nervously, "Why him? Why only the human?" And no one could answer. The human finally spoke, his voice calm but firm, echoing through the silence. This creature does not want death. It wants to live. It does not need chains. It needs trust. His words hit the chamber like lightning. The leaders shouted in anger, demanding silence. But the damage was done. The seed of doubt had been planted in every heart present. The beast pressed its massive head closer to the human, a gesture so strange and gentle that it silenced even the loudest voices. Its glowing green eyes closed slowly, like a child finding safety for the first time. The human kept his hand steady, stroking the beast's scales, whispering words no one else could hear. The chamber that had once been filled with whispers of fear now held whispers of wonder. The alien girl's heart raced. She felt as though she were standing at the edge of a great truth, something that would change everything she had been taught. The monster was no monster. The danger was not the beast, it was their fear of it. Yet, in the shadows, the leaders' eyes narrowed. Their voices turned colder. If the people see this, if they believe this, our control is gone. The beast must die no matter what trick this human uses. But in that moment, no one cared for their words. All eyes were on the sight unfolding before them. A human, kneeling in the dust, gently feeding and petting the very creature they had sworn was beyond saving. The suspense was unbearable. The audience inside the chamber and the audience hearing this story now could not look away, because they all knew they were standing at the beginning of something greater, something that would not end here. The beast was no longer just a prisoner. It was proof that even in the darkest places, one act of kindness could change everything. The chamber was still heavy with silence, broken only by the sound of the chains that clinked whenever the beast shifted its weight. The soldiers, who only moments ago had been ready to fire, now stood frozen. None of them could understand what they had just witnessed. The alien beast, feared for its violence, had accepted food from the human's hand and had allowed him to touch it. No one dared to move. All eyes were fixed on the kneeling human. His face showed no fear. His hand rested calmly against the beast's head, fingers brushing over the glowing blue scales as though he were stroking a horse instead of a monster. The beast's eyes, green and burning, had softened into something strange, something closer to trust. The leaders' voices cut through the air like sharp blades. Step away at once. This is an illusion. The creature only waits for the right moment to kill. Do not let it trick you. But the human did not move. He looked up briefly, his eyes steady. It is not a trick. Look at it. Does this look like a beast preparing to kill? The words shook the chamber. Some soldiers looked uncertain, their weapons lowering slightly. Others still clung to their fear, knuckles white against their triggers. The alien girl, standing not far behind, pressed a hand against her chest. Her heart beat so fast she thought everyone could hear it. She wanted to believe the human. She wanted to believe the creature could be more than what the stories said. The beast let out a deep rumble, but it was not the roar of anger they had heard before. It sounded tired, almost wounded, as though the chains weighed not only on its body but on its soul. Slowly, it lowered its massive head until it almost touched the ground. The human reached out again, his touch steady, gentle, full of quiet strength. A murmur spread through the soldiers. Some took small steps back, afraid of what might happen next. Others leaned forward, curiosity pulling them closer. The leaders shouted louder, their voices rising in frustration, but their power was slipping. Fear was no longer the only force in the room. The human reached into his pack again. This time he pulled out more food. He placed it carefully on the floor in front of the beast. The creature sniffed once, then carefully ate, each bite slow, controlled. The sight was almost impossible to believe. A monster once called unstoppable, now eating calmly like a tamed animal. One soldier whispered, "He's not controlling it. He's talking to it." Another muttered, "Maybe it understands him." The alien girl could no longer stay silent. Her voice, soft but clear, slipped into the still air. "It doesn't want to fight. It never did." The leaders turned their heads sharply toward her, their faces dark. "Quiet, child. Do not be fooled. That thing will destroy us all the moment its chains break." But her words had already reached the soldiers' ears. Doubt was spreading. The human rose to his feet slowly, his hand never leaving the beast's head. He stood tall, his voice strong but calm. This creature was not born to be our enemy. It was chained, beaten, and hunted. You feared it because you never tried to see it. But look now, do you see a monster or do you see a soul? The question hung in the chamber like a blade. No one answered. Because in that moment, even those who had come to kill could not deny what they saw with their own eyes. The beast shifted again, but instead of snapping its jaws or thrashing its chains, it pressed its head gently against the human's chest. The sound of chains scraping echoed as the huge body leaned forward in trust. The human placed both hands against its scaled head and whispered something only the creature could hear. For a brief moment, time itself seemed to stop. The soldiers stared in awe. The alien girl's eyes filled with tears she did not understand. Even the leaders, furious though they were, stood frozen by the impossible sight. The leaders quickly regained their voices. Do not be fooled. This is nothing but weakness. Kill it now before it turns on us all. But the human did not flinch. He turned his head slowly toward them, his hand still resting against the beast. If you kill it, you kill proof that not all strength lies in fear. Sometimes the greatest power is in mercy. The words were simple, but they struck deeper than any weapon. Soldiers who had come prepared for battle now looked down at their rifles, unsure if they could fire. The alien girl stepped closer, her eyes locked on the human and the beast. Drawn to the fragile bond forming between them, the chamber had changed. Where there had once been nothing but whispers of fear, now there was silence heavy with possibility, a dangerous silence, but one filled with something new, hope. The beast closed its eyes slowly, leaning further into the human's touch. The green glow of its eyes dimmed, not with death, but with peace. The chains around it rattled softly, no longer symbols of power but of cruelty. And in that moment, one truth was clear to all who watched. The human had made a choice that no one else dared to make. He had chosen trust over fear, kindness over violence. It was a choice that could change everything. But deep in the shadows, the leaders' fury burned. Their control was slipping, and they knew it. Their whispers turned cold and sharp. If the people began to believe what they had just seen, if they began to question the fear they had been taught, then their power would collapse. They could not allow it. The chamber was filled with tension once again, but this time it was not. The beast that threatened to explode it was the clash of truth against fear, of compassion against control, and everyone knew this story was only beginning. The chamber felt alive with tension. Every breath echoed like thunder in the silence, every heartbeat louder than the next. Soldiers stood frozen, rifles gripped but useless, their eyes glued to the sight that defied all they had been taught. The alien beast, the creature said to be too dangerous to exist, now pressed its massive head against the chest of a single human, and the human stood steady, his hands resting on its scales as though calming a frightened animal. The leaders shouted, again, their voices sharp with anger. Kill it, kill them both if you must, end this madness now. Their commands cracked across the chamber, but the soldiers did not move. Their hands trembled on their weapons. The order was clear, yet their hearts betrayed them. None dared fire the first shot. The beast shifted, the heavy chains clattering against stone, sparking under the strain. Its claws dug into the ground, but not in rage. The sound was less of a threat and more of a cry, like a prisoner begging silently for release. Its glowing green eyes, once feared, now seemed almost human in their sorrow. The human whispered, again, his voice too soft for most to hear, but the alien girl, standing close enough, caught his words. It's all right, you're not alone anymore. The beast's chest rose and fell, its breathing deep and slow. For the first time since its capture, it lowered its head all the way to the ground. The chamber gasped as one. This was not submission to chains. This was something far greater. Trust. The alien girl felt her throat tighten. All her life she had heard the stories. The beast was cursed, a destroyer, a nightmare that could never be allowed to live. Yet here, before her very eyes, the nightmare showed gentleness. It showed longing. And the human, just one human, had seen it first. The leader's fury only grew. They pointed at the beast, their robes flowing like angry flames. Do you not see? It only pretends. The moment its chains break, it will tear us apart. Do not let your weak hearts blind you. but even their words carried less weight now, for the soldiers had seen something that words could not erase. The human stepped closer to the beast's head, kneeling once more. He ran his hand along its scaled face, unafraid of the sharp teeth inches away. The beast made a low, vibrating sound, deep and steady, like the purr of a giant machine. The chamber filled with that sound, vibrating in the bones of everyone present. It was not a sound of fury, it was peace. The alien girl stepped forward, unable to stop herself. Her eyes shone with both fear and wonder. She reached out, hesitating. Just before her hand could touch the creature, she looked at the human, her voice trembling. "Will it hurt me?" The human looked up at her and shook his head gently. "Not if you show it kindness." Her fingers brushed the beast's scales. They were cold, hard like stone, yet alive with warmth beneath the surface. The beast did not move to strike. Instead, its massive eye turned, fixing on her. She saw herself reflected in its glow, a small figure standing before something powerful enough to crush her in an instant. And yet she felt no fear, only awe. Behind them, the leaders were losing control. Their voices cracked with desperation. "This cannot be allowed. It must die before it spreads corruption. Soldiers, obey your orders." But the soldiers hesitated, trapped between command and truth. None wanted to be the one to destroy what they had just witnessed. The beast shifted again, pulling at its chains. The sound was louder this time, sparks flying where the metal scraped stone. Gasps echoed around the chamber. Was it angry? Was it about to break free? The human raised his hand, calming it once more. "Easy," he whispered. His touch steadied. The creature, its breathing slowed. The violent rattle of chains turned into a slow, rhythmic sound. The beast was not fighting. It was responding to him. The alien girl could hardly breathe. She felt tears gathering at the corners of her eyes. This was not supposed to happen. This was not supposed to be possible. Yet here it was, life, trust, and hope blooming where fear had lived for so long. The leaders stepped forward, their patience broken. "If the soldiers will not act, then we shall." One raised a weapon, his hand steady with rage. Energy crackled at the barrel, light glowing against the chamber walls. The human's eyes snapped toward them. He stepped in front of the beast, spreading his arms wide. "If you strike, you will have to kill me too." The room erupted in chaos. Soldiers shouted in confusion, some lowering their weapons, others raising them again. The alien girl cried out, "Stop!" Her voice echoed, louder than she expected. "Look at it. Look at what it is doing. It is not a monster." But the leader's finger tightened on the trigger. The beast saw it. Its eyes flared, green fire. Burning once again, the chains rattled violently, the sound deafening. The ground trembled under its strength. Soldiers braced themselves, fear returning to their faces. The human pressed both hands against its head, whispering fiercely, "Stay with me. Don't fight them. Trust me." The beast's rage trembled at the edge of release. But then, slowly, it stopped. The chains fell. Still, its breathing steadied. It pressed its head closer into the human's chest, ignoring the weapon aimed at it. The chamber fell silent once more. The leader lowered his weapon slightly. His face twisted in disbelief. "Impossible." The human's voice rose, clear and strong. "Not impossible, only human." And in that moment, the chamber was filled with something more powerful than fear-proof, that compassion could tame. Even the wildest beast died, but in the eyes of the leaders, a darker truth took root. If kindness could break fear, then fear would no longer control the people, and that they could never allow. The alien girl stood frozen, her hands still resting against the beast's scales. Her heart raced so fast it felt as if it might burst. She had touched the creature her people had called a monster for generations, and instead of claws or fangs tearing her apart, she had felt only stillness, gentleness even. The warmth beneath its cold surface told her one thing: this was not the soulless beast she had been taught to fear. Her eyes flicked toward the human. He stood tall in front of the chained creature, his arms spread wide in defiance of the leaders. His voice calm even as weapons hummed all around him. In that moment, he looked more than a soldier. He looked like a guardian standing against the darkness of his own kind. The leaders were furious. Their robes rustled as they moved forward. their voices sharp with command. Enough of this madness. You are bewitched by the lies of a creature that knows nothing but blood. Step away at once. But the soldiers no longer moved with certainty. Their grips on their weapons were weak, their eyes shifting from the leaders to the human and the beast. Doubt had taken root, growing stronger with every second. The alien girl's voice slipped out, quiet but trembling with truth. You are wrong. The chamber went silent. Even the chains seemed to pause in their clinking. Every eye turned to her, the young girl standing with her white hair glowing faintly in the dim light. She felt their stares cut into her like blades, but she could not stay quiet any longer. I looked into its eyes, she said, her voice stronger now. I saw no hunger for death. I saw sadness. I saw longing. The leaders' faces darkened. Their eyes filled with rage. Child, you do not know what you speak of. But she stepped closer to the beast, her courage rising with every word. I do. It was chained, beaten, and hated because of fear, not because it deserved it. Look at it now. If it were the monster you claim, we would all be dead already. The soldiers shifted again, their doubt now heavier than their fear. Some lowered their weapons completely, while others only held them loosely. Unsure of what to believe, the beast let out a deep, slow breath. It leaned its massive head closer, resting it on the ground near the girl's feet. She gasped softly, her chest tightening. This was not submission born of weakness. It was trust. It was choice. The human knelt again, his hand never leaving the beast. He looked at the girl, his voice steady. You see it too, don't you? She nodded, her eyes shining. Yes, I see it. The leaders were losing control. Their shouts echoed like desperate thunder. Do not listen. This is deception. Do not be fooled by a trick of survival. It will strike when you least expect it. But their words no longer rang with power. They sounded hollow, broken against the living truth in front of them. The human reached into his pack again, this time, pulling out water. He held it toward the beast. The creature sniffed, then carefully lapped at the offering, each movement slow and deliberate. The sound of it drinking was strangely human. A quiet rhythm of survival, reminding everyone that this was not a mindless killer, it was a living being. The girl felt her throat tighten again. She remembered the stories she had heard as a child, stories of villages destroyed, of soldiers torn apart, of fire and blood raining from the skies. But now she wondered if those stories were true at all, or if they had been told to keep her. People afraid, to keep them obedient. She whispered, almost to herself, all my life I feared something that never wanted to harm me. The beast lifted its head slightly, its glowing eyes locking onto hers. In them she saw no rage, no hunger. She saw recognition, as if it understood her words. Tears slipped down her cheeks before she realized she was crying. The human's voice broke the silence again. Fear's a chain as strong as these, he said, tapping the metal that bound the beast. But chains can break. The leaders could not allow the moment to continue. Their fury boiled over. Seize them, one shouted, if the soldiers will not kill the beast, then take the traitors who protect it. But the soldiers hesitated. None stepped forward. None obeyed. The human's act had reached them. And now the girl's courage had planted doubt so deep it could not be pulled out. The chamber was no longer a place of judgment. It had become a battlefield of belief-fear. Against hope, control against compassion, the beast shifted again, the chains grinding as it tried to move closer to the girl and the human. Sparks scattered where metal scraped stone. The sound was sharp, echoing like a promise of change. The girl placed both hands on its snout, her voice shaking but clear. We will not let them hurt you. The creature let out a sound unlike any they had heard before, not a growl, not a roar, but something soft, low, and almost sorrowful. It was a voice of gratitude, a voice that had been silenced for too long. The leaders shouted louder, but their voices were drowned out by the pounding of hearts, by the realization spreading through the soldiers, and by the simple truth written in the beast's eyes. The alien girl finally understood what the human had known all along. The greatest danger was never the beast. The greatest danger was believing the lies that had chained them all. And as the beast pressed its head gently against her hands, she knew her life, and perhaps the fate of her people, would never be the same again. The chamber was no longer still. Whispers rippled through the soldiers, their voices uncertain, their hands shaking on their rifles. The beast lay calm beside the human and the alien girl, its glowing green eyes half closed, as if the heavy chains no longer mattered. Yet above them, the leaders stood tall, their faces twisted with anger. One of them slammed his staff against the stone floor. The crack echoed like thunder. Enough. You have all been deceived. Do you not see? This is how monsters survive. They play with your weakness, trick you with false signs of peace, and then when you trust them, they strike. Kill it now. The soldiers flinched, but not one moved forward. Doubt held them in place like invisible chains. They had seen with their own eyes what the leaders could not erase. The beast had chosen not to fight. The human had touched it without fear. The girl had spoken truth, and the creature had answered her not with violence, but with gentleness. The alien girl raised her voice again, louder than before. You call it a monster, but monsters do not lower their heads. Monsters do not show mercy when they are chained. Look, it had every chance to strike us, but it did not. Who are the true monsters, the beast, or those who keep it in chains? Her words spread through the chamber like fire, lighting the hearts of those who had been silent. Some soldiers lowered their weapons completely. Others looked at the leaders. With suspicion, the human's voice joined hers, steady and firm. If you kill it now, you will not be killing a beast. You will be killing truth. You will be proving that fear rules you more than reason. And when fear rules, no one is free. The beast let out a low sound, a heavy rumble that vibrated through the ground. But it was not a roar of rage. It was a sound of warning, of strength held back. The chains shook violently, sparks flying where metal scraped stone. The leaders panicked. Their power was slipping like sand through their fingers. One of them snarled, "If you will not obey, then obedience will be forced." He pulled a weapon. From beneath his robes, its barrel glowing with deadly light. The human stepped in front of the beast again, spreading his arms wide. "You fire at it. You fire at me." Gasps echoed through the soldiers. None of them had ever seen such defiance. Not even in battle. He did not shout or beg. His voice carried calm certainty, a shield stronger than armor. The alien girl stood beside him, her hands still pressed against the beast's head. "And you will have to fire at me too," she said. Her voice trembled, but her eyes did not. The soldiers looked at each other, torn between the fury of their leaders and the courage of the two who now stood against them. One soldier finally lowered his rifle completely, shaking his head. "I won't do it. I won't kill something that trusts." Another followed, then another. Weapons clattered to the floor one by one, the sound like waves crashing against the leaders' crumbling authority. The leaders' rage turned to desperation, their faces twisted with fear of losing control. "Traitors," one shouted, "you will doom us all." The beast growled, chains rattling louder now, but the human calmed it with his hand. "Stay," he whispered. "Do not fight, not yet." The girl felt the beast's scales vibrate beneath her fingers, power contained like a storm locked in a cage. She could sense its struggle, the desire to break free, the longing for freedom, but also the fragile trust it held in the humans. Words. The leaders raised their weapons higher, aiming directly at the beast. The glow of energy filled the chamber with sharp light. The soldiers shouted in panic, some moving forward to stop them, others frozen by fear. The human stood tall, his voice clear. "If you fire, the chains will not hold. If you fire, you will unleash the very thing you fear. But if you trust, just once, you may see something greater than fear." The chamber shook as the beast pulled at the chains again. This time, cracks spread across the stone floor. Dust rained down from above. Soldiers stumbled, their rifles slipping from their hands. The leaders wavered, but kept their aim steady, their pride stronger than reason. The alien girl cried out, "Stop this. You will bring destruction on us all. Look at it. Look at what it has chosen." For the beast had lowered its head again, pressing it softly against the ground, waiting, listening. It could have torn the chamber apart. It could have slaughtered them all, but it did not. It waited only for the human's hand, the human's voice, the human's choice. The girl's tears fell freely now, her voice breaking. "How can you not see? It is not the beast that wants blood. It is you. You are the ones who cannot live without fear. The silence that followed was heavier than chains. The soldiers stared at their leaders, at the human, at the beast, at the girl. The chamber had become a stage where truth clashed with lies, and the audience no longer believed the old story. The leaders' hands shook on their weapons, their faces pale with fury and fear. They were not only fighting the beast, they were fighting the collapse of everything they had built. The beast shifted one last time, and with a sound like thunder, one of the chains snapped. Sparks burst into the air, the echo rolling through the chamber like the roar of the universe itself. The soldiers stumbled back, their voices filled with shock. The leader's eyes widened in terror. The human held his ground, his hand pressed against the creature, whispering words of calm. The girl closed her eyes, praying silently that the fragile trust would hold. And as the dust settled, every heart in the chamber knew that the moment of choice had come. Fear or trust, chains or freedom, death or mercy. The story was no longer about a beast in chains. It was about the truth that chains could never hide forever. The chain lay broken at the beast's side, its shattered links glowing faintly in the dim light. Dust floated through the air, each particle glittering like falling stars. The chamber, once filled with whispers of fear, now held only silence. Every soldier, every leader, every eye was fixed on the massive creature that had just shown it could break its prison whenever it chose. But the beast did not move to attack. Its green eyes, bright as fire, turned slowly toward the human standing beside it. The human's hand rested calmly on its scales, his voice quiet but firm. "Stay. You are free now, but do not waste your freedom on rage." The beast lowered its head again, pressing it gently against the ground. The action stunned everyone. Here was the monster they had feared for years, the creature meant to be sacrificed. Bowing not in defeat, but in peace, the alien girl stepped forward, her heart pounding. She touched the creature's snout once more, her voice trembling with awe. "It listens. It understands." Tears slid down her cheeks, though she did not notice. To her, the beast was no longer a curse. It was a mirror showing them their own cruelty. The soldiers exchanged uneasy glances. Their weapons hung useless at their sides. None could deny the truth anymore. The beast had shown more restraint, more dignity, than the leaders who screamed for its death. Those leaders were trembling now, their authority cracked beneath the weight of the moment. One shouted desperately, "Do not be fooled. This is the calm before it strikes." His voice shook, no longer the voice of a commander, but of a man afraid. Another leader raised his weapon again, fury burning in his eyes. But before he could fire, several soldiers stepped forward, blocking his aim. "No," one of them said firmly. "We've seen the truth. We won't kill it." The chamber erupted into chaos. Some soldiers shouted at the leaders, others at each other, while a few simply dropped their weapons altogether. The leaders tried to regain control, but their words no longer carried weight. The beast shifted its body, and another chain snapped, the sound ringing like a drum of revolution. The girl stood taller, her voice cutting through the noise. "All of you, look at what is before your eyes. This is no monster. This is a being who has chosen peace over violence, trust over fear. And if we cannot see that, then perhaps the monsters are us." Her words echoed across the stone walls, clear and undeniable. The human lifted his head, his voice following hers, strong and steady. "Fear has ruled you for too long. You built chains not only for this creature, but for yourselves. But chains break, lies fall, only truth remains." The beast let out a deep sound, not a roar, but something softer, something closer to a song. It was a vibration that passed through stone and bone alike, a sound of release, of sorrow, and of hope. The chamber trembled with it, hearts trembling too. The leaders were pale now, their anger collapsing into desperation. "If you free it, you doom us all," one cried. But even as he spoke, his voice faltered, for no one was listening anymore. The human placed his hand firmly on the beast's head one last time, his words clear and loud. "This creature was condemned without trial, hated without reason, and chained without mercy. But it has shown us what none of you could, that trust is stronger than fear. that mercy is greater than power. The girl stepped beside him, her hand joining his on the beast. Together they stood as one, united by something greater than fear, greater than tradition. The soldiers began to lower their weapons for the final time, their decision made. The beast would not die today. With a final, thunderous crack, the last of the chains snapped apart. Dust filled the air, and the chamber shook under the force of the creature's freedom. But instead of rampage, the beast simply stretched its massive body, then lowered its head once more, as if bowing to those who had finally chosen compassion. Gasps filled the room. Soldiers dropped to their knees, not in fear, but in respect. Even those who could not understand what they felt knew this moment was bigger than them all. The leaders stumbled back, powerless. Their voices no longer mattered. Their fear no longer ruled. The girl whispered, her voice breaking with emotion, "All my life I was told to fear, but now I see. Fear was the chain, not the beast." The human turned his gaze across the chamber, meeting the eyes of every soldier, every witness. "Remember this day. Remember that it was not a weapon that saved you. It was trust. It was kindness." The beast released one final low rumble, softer than before, like a farewell. Then it rose to its feet, massive and unchained, yet calm as still water. It turned its glowing eyes toward the chamber doors, then back to the human and the girl. For a moment, the three stood together, bound not by chains, but by something stronger. Understanding. Then, with a single heavy step, the beast began to walk away. The sound of its movements echoed deep, each footfall like the beating of a giant heart. No one tried to stop it. No one dared. They only watched as the legend of fear became a symbol of something new. The girl wiped her tears and whispered into the quiet, "Maybe the real monsters were never the beasts, but our fear of them." And as the chamber doors closed behind the freed creature, everyone knew that the world had changed, not because a beast had been killed, but because a human had dared to show it mercy.